Good. Right, so if you stand on there again. Hey,
Oh, amazing.
there we go. Stand on there. Light turns on.
Me.
Yes. Right, my go. Woo! So, first of all, thank you so much to my friends Hollie and Alissa who helped me out testing this thing. Oh, and also, there are a couple bloopers from those calls at the end if you want to stick around for that. You know, Redstone, things go wrong. Hey, it's been a sec. This is actually something I built months ago. I want to say like May last year, but because of doing the PhD, mental health, blah 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 blah, the it sort of I sort of put it off. Editing it and filming the last bits till now, but essentially this is a multiplayer detector. I'm not really sure what to call it, maybe a smart player detector, where instead of being able to detect any player or one specific player, it gives different outputs for different players. I feel like this is quite useful for different applications in servers, like you can have doors which only open for certain players, or you can have messages that only show up for specific players. And the example you see here is this I sort of very quickly put together an ATM design where, depending on the player standing in front of it, a different shulker box will be given out. This is basically entirely useless for a survival world, considering you can do this but better with an ender chest. But it's just a sort of an example of the technology. So I wanted a system for detecting different players with different outputs for each player. I couldn't find any really good designs. There are designs out there that include pets, but it's very hard to get that compact. I tried to use zombie piglin aggression, and I found some good designs, but they had a lot of moving parts, which I found broke, and it wasn't exactly compact either. The gold standard of player detection for a long time is pufferfish. If a player comes near to a pufferfish, you can use this setup to send out a signal, and then when you leave, it unpuffers. That's perfect if you want to just detect any player. But like I was saying, I wanted a specific signal, and I wanted every player to have their own different signal. The next thing that came to mind after piglin aggression and pets was Allays, since if you give an item to an Allay, it tries to give it back to you. And importantly, it tries to give you back the item through blocks. So even if it can't reach you, it'll still try to give you those items. So you can use this to make a pretty simple player detector. The Allay will pick up the item before it has a chance to go into the hopper, and then try to give it to you. And when it tries to give it to you, it'll just fall into the hopper and keep circulating. Now this design is good for going through walls, but less good for standing above. Like, yeah, here you go. It doesn't quite work. It's slightly too far. So a more compact design, and one that works from all 5 directions. So one like north, south, east, west, and above is this one where there's a daylight detector here. An important point with the daylight detector version is you just got to make sure that it's set to either day or night, depending on what the light conditions are going to be. If it's always going to be light when you're using it, set to night. But in most cases, I would say the best case scenario is to keep it as a daylight detector and just surround it by opaque blocks. This would be a really nice, compact way of making a sort of a whitelist lot. Any player that you want to be whitelisted, say getting into a specific base, maybe, every whitelisted player just adds an Allay into here with an item. And that way any player in that whitelist would walk over this, and their Allay would start up the signal, and they could go in. But any player that's not on the whitelist would have no effect here at all. So this is the same system here in my world specifically for this. This is also quite nice because it's very easy to load. You just have to build this sort of rail system here with regular rails or powered rails, doesn't really matter, and a powered activator rail at the end. You bring your Allays into here. You give them your item, you get them into a minecart, and there you go. I generally use a lot of the same packs as Hermitcraft. So on Hermitcraft they have the silence me tags to silence mobs. So if you have that installed, I would probably say it's a good idea, because otherwise the Allays will make a lot of sound, especially if there are like 20 people on your server. I try not to cover existing designs and stuff. I'll try and find if someone's done something similar. And after I came up with using Allays, I found this Reddit post where somebody's done something similar. I think my design is maybe a bit more compact, but this person did come up with it first. But as far as I can tell, nobody's used this to make a specific player detector. Once you've made this, the next bit is actually quite simple, and it's just a matter of like optimizing. The important parts about Allays are specific to one player, and they try to give that player a specific item. So if you put your Allays inside this system, and each Allay that belonged to a different player had a different item, you could then sort those items with just, a regular item sorter if you didn't mind about speed. Each Allay has a specific item that's specific to each player. That item falls into these hoppers and gets sorted, giving out a specific signal from each of these blocks depending on the player. The item circulates back, goes through this dropper elevator, and back to the Allay. So if I just prime this with a redstone, so without an Allay there, this is just simulating somebody standing up there. As you can see, that periodically a signal will appear here as long as the player is standing up there. I think it is genuinely quite useful for multiplayer worlds. I'm working on a build where I want a different outcome depending on which player is present. I would say it's harder to make one of these systems with Allays that belong to different players, that you don't want them to know that you have their Allays. But, people make farms with Allays in them. You could very surreptitiously steal someone's Allay from a farm and replace it with one of your own. Just say it. This is probably fast enough for most cases, but I did just quickly put together a faster version. So this is exactly the same, except the item sorting is slightly faster because it uses downwards facing hoppers. The bottom uses instant droppers, and it uses instant droppers to go up again. And you can't use instant droppers at this bit because the item needs to be over each hopper for at least a game tick to actually be pulled. So if you use instant droppers, it will just transport it right to the end and you don't do any item sorting. So instead, I've done one of the quickest ways of doing this, which is just using leaf signals, since signals get transported, via leaf at 1 game tick per leaf. So this is... there's definitely quicker ways of doing it, but this is quick. So, it takes a little bit, a couple seconds, but it's pretty fast. Yeah, so I think this version or if anybody can make quicker versions, feel free, is good for, large amounts of people. So I'll quickly go over this ATM system. The full system itself is not particularly useful, like I said, to people's survival worlds, but the individual components probably are, so I'll put it in the world download as well, just in case. I have changed one thing since making those clips back in May, which is that, as you might see from those clips, there was a repeater here, which was locking this hopper by powering the shulker box. That still works fine, but turns out there was a bug, which I utilized. So it's supposed to be that shulker boxes are transparent to redstone power when you open them, which means items should fall out. But in the previous version, it wouldn't update the blocks around it when you do that. So it would think it's still powered, so it would stay locked. I probably should have done this from the beginning anyway. Instead now, this tripwire will lock this hopper when you stand in it. When you walk out of it, this piston will fire, which will drop the shulker, and it'll unlock the hopper at the exact same time and pull it down. The system itself is mostly the same sorting system, but it turns this pulse signal into a continuous signal using a modified hopper clock. This is just a variable and tileable pulse extender. So it turns this pulse signal into a continuous signal. So it does three things. It powers this dropper, which releases the shulker box. It unlocks this hopper, which means that when you're finished, only the correct hopper is unlocked, allowing the shulker to go back into the system at the end. And it toggles this rail, which just sends that information up to the light at the top. So if you ever have the need to detect players, consider using this. I'll show those bloopers with Alissa and Holly in a second. But yeah, I just wanted to say thanks so much for watching. I will definitely have more videos. The limiting factor is not ideas. I have a lot of ideas and a lot of redstone builds that I still need to show you. And who knows, maybe soon I'll do a world tour. But I probably won't have a consistent schedule until I finish my PhD. Hopefully that should be soon though. Fingers crossed you don't have fingers in Minecraft, but imagine I'm crossing those. Great. Well, see you next time, I guess. Soon, I hope. Bye. Press the button and do it again, I guess.
Oops. No!
What the hell?
Okay, I swear I didn't do that.
Oh,
no, they're all coming. They're spawning out.
Yeah, because you put mob eggs into a dispenser, and so when it dispenses the eggs, it it hatches them.
Sorry, guys.
Oh, what happened?
The exact same thing that happened before. But now it's not working for no obvious reason.
Oh, I do love the little quirks in Minecraft.